Welcome to The Lock Shop with Nielson and Hustler, powered by Coolbet Canada.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Lock Shop. It is Dusty with you. Huss is gone. He's quit the Lock Shop. He won't be back ever again because the Kansas City Chiefs lost yesterday. So Huss is out. That's what we've learned today. Sorry about that, everybody. He'll never, ever, ever join us again. Sad day. Just kidding. Huss will be by right away. That's where Huss will be. He'll be on the Lock Shop right away. What's going on, everybody? Trev was here. He was panicking. But don't worry. Not only is Huss going to be by, Jake's going to be by today as well from Coolbet. And Jake is in a full-blown meltdown today as a New England Patriots fan. And they go from drafting first overall to fourth overall because of a win. So you got to love those teams that are so bad they can't even lose properly, which is kind of hilarious. Anyway, we'll get into that with Jake when he pops by. He'll be by around 11:30. We got an NHL slate tonight. We will get to that. Cowboy is in the nasty chat over there. Cowboy's the guy who took me out in the poker tournament that we're going to discuss when Huss joins us. Cowboy says best NFL future cash so far. Detroit plus 600 for the number one seed in the NFC. Well done, Cowboy. You love to see that. You can text us anytime if you're listening on TuneIn or iHeart or at EdmontonSportsTalk.com. Very easily. Just fire us a text 780-218-9999. And if you're watching over on YouTube today, hammer the thumbs up for us as we try to make Lock Shop Show of the Year at Edmonton Sports Talk. So do that for us as well. We're going to dive into the NHL slate a little bit later on. Like I said, Jake will be in to recap the meltdown. We'll recap the weekend in the National Football League. We will take a look ahead to the playoff matchups in the National Football League as well. Overall, in general, lots to discuss with Huss, who joins us right now from, of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk and right here on the Lock Shop. Huss, my man, Happy New Year. How you doing, buddy?
You too, dude. How was the time away with the family?
Oh, man, so good. Like when I was sick, obviously I was like immobilized. It sucked. So to have like 12, 13, 14, whatever it was, days off to just be with my family healthy was, I don't want to swear, but it was freaking awesome. Like I was the first time I was home with my parents at Christmas since like 2017. One of my sisters was there with her kids. The kids played together for like 2 weeks. I won the Spite League while I was home. I'll never forget that. It was so good, man. So good.
So, we've been talking about this all year. Yeah. Great that you had a good time with the family. Let's get right to the fantasy football.
Spite League win.
Considering what happened at the beginning of the season, are you going to win it and walk?
Most satisfying fantasy victory of my life. It'll never be topped. Reed Wilkins, I love you. It was funny because one of the guys who was very vocal against me, I played in the semifinals, and he had his highest scoring week of the season, 144 points, would have beat the other semifinalists by like 35 points, but Spite League team, 164 points, smoked him. Then I hung 170 on the guy in the final and beat him by 70. I almost doubled him up. It was an exclamation point on a dominating season. Then on the Tuesday morning, and my wife, she was fully invested in Spite League because she doesn't like when I get screwed over. So she was in on this one. She cared about it. I spent about 45 minutes writing a message to the entire league. And I titled it, "Thank you and I'm sorry." And then I went on to say thank you to all of them for being inept at their jobs and allowing me to construct this team. And then I apologized to them for destroying them so badly. And I laid it out. I was just like, listen, I got Brock Bowers late in the second round. Even without him, I still would have won. I traded for Jahmyr Gibbs, but even without him, I still would have. Like, I just grinded it right
That's
to him.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's
so
all
good.
about. And there's nothing like a good 2-pager to the rest of your league.
It was
well
long.
thought out. But I will argue, and this is a good lesson for lock shoppers out there. If they ever get sucked in by some of the devious, ironic types of the world, you keep your head on straight, because the karma of what happened to you killed those guys before the season even started.
It was over. It was done then.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way the fantasy gods were going to allow that to be rewarded. So, well, congratulations on that.
You know what I also did? I also told them in the email, I said, and I want to thank you all for putting me so on tilt after taking away my 11th overall pick that I only drafted Jaden Daniels out of spite, because I know they hate guys who hoard quarterbacks, and I already had CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson. And I was just like, screw it. I'm taking another one because I know they hate it. So
thank God you did.
I know, thank God I did. What a stud. So it was
Stroud and Richardson both had complete dud seasons.
I traded both of them throughout the year because I had Jaden Daniels. It worked out well. I got good deals for both of them. So
2 quarterback league or one?
Just a 1 quarterback league, but there's 16 of us. So it's like,
yes,
quarterbacks are a little bit more valuable than in a 12-team league. But man, I couldn't get any better. I'm telling you, it was the greatest accomplishment of my life, and I've produced 2 humans. It's part, I contributed in producing 2 humans, I guess I should say. But this one's right up there. It's right up there.
Top 3 moments in Dusty's life: 2 and 3, having my children; number 1, winning the Spite League.
And number 4, the wedding. The wedding was fun too, but it's number 4.
Make sure your wife hears your name in the top 5.
Yeah. So that was the highlight of my holidays. But the low light of my holidays was the Canada-Costa Rica qualifier, the poker tourney we played in. And I was out in 8 minutes. That was the worst ever.
I waited for you to return before bringing that up. I figured I wouldn't discuss on here what had happened. That was the day. You got to worry about the nuts.
You know what was so funny is that I was sitting around, the boys were like, hey, do you guys want to play in this? I was like, yeah. Then I was talking with Tam and my dad, and I was like, man, if I actually finish top 2 in here, I win a trip to Costa Rica. Should I go for it? Should I try to win it and win this trip, or with family commitments, would I not? And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try to win it. And then 8 minutes in, I come walking out of the living room and they're like, what happened? I said, I'm out. I had Trip Queens. And I'm out.
Family too much. I love my family too much.
That's what I did. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was fun. Congratulations. YouTube Trev's uncle is one of the guys who won the 2 trips. I was surprised that Cowboy only finished in 6th because he took my whole stack from me at the very beginning of the tournament. So I thought he'd take a little bit of a deeper run. How'd you finish?
Well, unfortunately, the tournament lasts far longer than the first 10 minutes of it. And there's many trials and tribulations through it. This isn't one of those hyper turbo single table event.
How'd you do? What'd you finish?
I think I ended up being 6th or 7th or so.
Yeah.
You know what? We started with 10K.
Yeah.
And I was sort of getting the feel of the table right off the bat. And I had what I thought was a very good hand, went in, bet a little bit, and then got hit very hard. Had to fold. But it took about, and it wasn't it wasn't like I was half stacked. I mean, I think I probably went down maybe close to $2,000.
Okay.
But just the dynamics of that right off the bat got me off a little bit, where I was either folding stuff or I was going in a little bit. And then I think some of the more experienced players were realizing that I was a little worried about, making another bad move. So I wasn't playing a lot of hands when I was going in. I was also sometimes just seeing flops and then being out. And then I needed to get a little bit more aggressive. And I mean, at the end, I did go in with the best hand. It was very frustrating. I think he rivered an inside straight.
Oh.
I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I probably had like an 88, 89% chance of winning everything. I got in with the best hand. Everything was up. But that's the game, right? So you'd prefer not to be in situations where you're putting your entire stack at risk. At that point, I had to do it, and I ended up getting burned. But listen, in a tournament like that, there's a lot of good players. Certainly that'll be the case for the guys that end up moving on to Costa Rica. And, it's a combination of common sense, holding it when you maybe don't want to, and then also having the balls to go in when you think. And then there's some good fortune involved in what comes next. So
I wish somebody would have had a camera on me because I remember looking at it. I had the 3 queens and he goes all in. I'm like, I even said it. I was just like, I said, I got to call him. I said, the only thing he could have is pocket kings. And I called him, and like 1 second later, he flipped over the pocket kings. And I was like, no, I should have seen. Well, I did see it coming. It was bad play. But that was a lot of fun. We are going to be having another poker tournament in January. I think the boys were talking about maybe on Wednesday, January 29th. There's no Jets. There's no Oilers. So that could be a date that we're looking at. So maybe pencil that one in right now, and we'll confirm a little bit later on. But January 29th, I think, might be the day. And I'm having a lot of fun in these poker tournaments, so I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, well, just try and stick around longer than 8 minutes this time, Dustin. Marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, all right. We do have lots. There's a smaller slate in the National Hockey League tonight. We'll give you some best bets for that. We'll talk about the World Juniors when we head over to the hockey side of things as well. But lots to discuss coming out of the NFL yesterday. Playoff matchups are set. Lions and Vikings last night. Huss. I was pretty worried early in that game. But boy, did the Lions look great in the second half and took care of business against the Vikings. What's your number one takeaway for either team coming out of that game?
Well, and I'm not saying that this is going to be the case for the playoffs, but the clock struck midnight for Sammy Darts in the Cinderella role. He had a brutal game. I mean, there's not really any other way you can sugarcoat it. He was 18 of 41. You saw when he was missing. I mean, they had so many opportunities early on to put that into the end zone, and he was just off. I mean, listen, Justin Jefferson had a couple drops. There was a few balls that were thrown to him that, he could have had, others that just weren't. And that, in a lot of ways, sort of set the tone. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they got that pick and got it right back on the 3-yard line. And I mean, so listen, Darnold had a really rough game. Can't say enough about that Detroit defense, though. I mean, Dan Campbell's defense went out there, undermanned, expected to get rolled over, and they were phenomenal. The coverage on the Minnesota receivers was excellent for 60 minutes. And, that sort of defensive performance, I think, gave the Lions all the confidence they needed, not that they didn't go in with a lot of it beforehand. And fantasy players are right now seeing what a Jahmyr Gibbs offense looks like without David Montgomery in it.
What a freak. More touches. I like David Montgomery, but more touches for Gibbs is never a bad thing. It's just, he's dynamic. It'll be like he finished with the most touchdowns in the league, and he split 85 to 90% of the season with David. Like, can you imagine what he would do in a one-man backfield? It'd be ridiculous.
I feel a little vindicated because you will remember when we were doing our future show at the start of the year, I did say, if there's one guy in the league that has the ability to be the leader in rushing, it's Jahmyr Gibbs, and went on him. And I don't know what the number was, 20 or 25 to 1. I mean, just with the play time, the way things were set up, he never really got the touches to really get into the mix. But I mean, like, let's just say David Montgomery's on another team next year, or there's another guy. Like, if all of a sudden Jahmyr Gibbs is getting 20 carries a game, he's right there with Barkley. He's right there with Derrick Henry. He's right there with the best in the league. And such a huge win for the Lions. I mean, we were talking about, I got a big crew last night. We all went out to watch the game, and we were talking about it before. Would this be like the biggest regular season game in NFL history? I mean, 14-2 versus 14-2, last game of the regular season, number 1 seed, a bye on the line, and the other team ends up having to go on the road in the wild card week. Like, historically, I don't think you've ever had 2 14 wins play each other, win teams. And then with the scenario on it, I mean, it was like the playoffs started last night. It's just that these teams were so good that if you lost, you still had an out. And
you make a valid point on it, maybe being the biggest regular season, because the Lions become just the 9th team ever to win 15 games. And the Vikings have the best wild card record of all time. Like, there's never been a 14-win wild card team. So that we've never seen that situation before.
Yeah, so, when you think about the other biggest regular season games ever, is like, oh, you've got 2 9-0 teams going at it on Monday Night Football or something like that, which is amazing, and the records are great. But I mean, there's still another half of the season, and so many things can happen. I mean, the way that it worked out, I'll say this: credit to the NFL script writers. They did a masterful job this year in setting us up for one final blast of the regular season. The only problem was the script did not include a better football game. I mean, it was crazy, dude. We talked about this. That was the biggest total. Like, that was another thing about it. Like, everyone was expecting so many points, the highest total of the year at 56.5.
Yeah, closed at 56.5. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
56.5, and it never really budged. And you know what was wild? The line never really budged all weekend. I kept looking back. I mean, Minnesota +3 was anywhere from 116 to 112, but it didn't go to 2.5. It didn't go to 3.5. I mean, it was just right there, and the money line was relatively similar. So, I mean, a hell of a way to finish the year. And I mean, for the Jakes of the world, they were worried about everything else that happened, and I'm sure he's going to come in hot that the Patriots won. And then how about Mayo getting fired? Like, that press release, literally, the coaches are finished shaking hands. Is he in the tunnel right now? Boom.
Yeah, it was done like immediately. Yeah, that one was already determined. I don't think we have to worry about. But yeah, for Jake, what they go from picking 1st overall to 4th overall?
Yeah,
I think that's what ended up happening. That's a pretty big swing. So,
as Bill Simmons said that last night, he goes, well, we just traded a 1st-round pick, the 1st pick for the 4th pick in every round.
Yeah.
What'd you get back? Nothing.
That's a good point. Nothing back. Yeah. Geez. So, yeah, I mean, there's 5 coaching openings right now. There's a bunch to get to. Bonus, like Mike Evans hits his $3 million bonus. How about Spencer Rattler? You think he's just a Mike Evans guy and he just threw a pick in the final minute so the Bucs could take a shot at Mike Evans getting the record? That was storybook right there for Evans.
Was it a pick or was it a 4th down? I can't remember, but I mean, they were, because it was an 8-point game. So, I mean, they were still trying to get a touchdown, and, you know, they had the ball in the last couple minutes, and then whatever happened, I can't remember whether it was a pick or whether it was just an incompletion on a 4th down. But everyone in the building knew that they were not going into victory formation. And then, you know, Baker throws that pass, and they went crazy. Like, that was bigger than any touchdown that was scored yesterday. It was bigger than when they got the ball and they knew that they were going to win and won the division. Mike Evans, what a stud. Speaking of fantasy, every year, 1,000 yards, book it. So he ties Jerry Rice for that lead. And I will say it was funny that the number, because when we were, again, you weren't here last week, but we were going through all of these incentives. And when I first looked at the Mike Evans number, it was in and around 80 something, because he needed 85 yards for the record. And then a little later on, it was up to 99.5. And I think everyone knew he was going to get 85. The question was whether he kind of take it over 100 yards and do a little bit more. So his prop ended up being an under. And we had him in the house callers too, which was unfortunate. He didn't get in. But overall, I know Jake's incentive parlay cashed. He can take a victory lap on that when he comes in a little later on. But other than that, it was there was a few plays. It was a quieter week. A lot just went into that night game because now, Dusty, 18 teams move on to the offseason. 14 remain. And by the way, did you see my did you see my tweet during the Chiefs Bengals game?
No, I don't think I did.
There was some Bengal fans that were not pleased with the way the Chiefs had handled with the way the Chiefs had handled it. I'll just read it for you all. Many salty Bengals fans right now. Don't blame anyone else. Losing to the Patriots, Commanders, Chiefs, Chargers, Eagles, Steelers, and Ravens twice will do that. But look on the bright side. At least your guy Joey B had huge numbers. He should kick ass at the Pro Bowl.
That was your tweet? I saw that tweet. I didn't realize it was your tweet.
Oh, yeah. That was mine. That was mine. I'd heard enough of Burrowhead and everything else. And, I mean, did Burrow have an amazing season? Absolutely. They were 9-8. A lot of other good teams found ways to win games that they didn't. So,
speaking of quarterbacks having great seasons, who's the MVP? Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson again?
Any of them win 15 games?
No, so you're going to vote for Jared Goff?
I was going to say Mahomes.
I knew you were going to say Mahomes, but for the one time in my life, I got to make a Jared Goff joke. So,
listen, I got a lot of time for Goff. I don't know. I think I'd probably get sucked in with the. Listen, all joking aside, there's incredible candidates this year. There's just been a feeling over the last month it's sort of been Josh Allen's year.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about, the games that he's had, particularly late, I mean, if you look at just numbers.
Lamar's got him in like every category.
Yeah. Well, and Burrow has those guys in every category. Well, the exception for running. So, yeah, it's tough. I think Lamar's screwed because he's won it twice. And this is just like there's a little bit of voter fatigue, I think, with that. I mean, you've seen
that's probably what it comes down to.
Like if neither of them had ever won the award before, I might say it's Lamar's to lose. But I kind of think that they feel like Josh deserves one too, and he's going to get one. And listen, he's had an MVP quality season. I mean, the funny thing is that if the Bengals had just found a way to win one of those other games and actually get into the playoffs, we're legitimately talking about Burrow being there.
Yeah, it leads the league in yards. It leads the league in touchdowns, like 9 interceptions. Man, Lamar Jackson this year, 41 touchdown passes and 4 interceptions. That's pretty ridiculous. That's pretty insane. Had a huge rushing season, led the league in QBR. I mean, I think he's made a valid enough case that people at least might look past the Josh Allen narrative, but Josh Allen also a valid candidate there as well.
Hey, Jake's going to come in a minute. We'll probably just keep running with football. You want to quickly hit some hockey here?
Yeah, we can do that.
Together?
Yeah, we can do that, and then we can dive in because I want to get to all the early week lines and stuff for these games. So
exactly, we got to get to the lines. We got to talk about the draft order, the winners and losers of 18. What do we? We got 4 games tonight on the NHL slate.
4 games tonight. I'll grab the goalies here. Give me a sec.
Here are your odds for this evening's games. The Caps are minus 154 favorites in Buffalo. Sabres plus 130. Canucks in Montreal to take on the Habs. Ooh, I wonder if there'll be any media circling around the Canucks going into Montreal with what's happening. That'll be a scrum you'll want to check out. Canucks minus 130. Habs plus 110. Panthers Avalanche. That will be worth watching tonight. Plus 105 for the Panthers. Avs minus 123. And the Devils and the Kraken. New Jersey minus 250. Seattle plus 205. What do we got for goalies in those games?
Let's see. Charlie Lindgren is confirmed to start for the Caps. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen likely for the Sabres. Lankinen and Montembeault unconfirmed. Mackenzie Blackwood will start for Colorado in that game against the Panthers. Bobrovsky's listed as unconfirmed. And then Markstrom and Grubauer both unconfirmed, though, at this point. So not a lot of help from a goaltending perspective so far, Huss. But what do you like?
Quick question on Vancouver. Are they getting anybody back? Elias is still on IR. Quinn Hughes is still day-to-day.
Let's see here.
It's looking like, no, it's still JT Miller, Brock Besser, Jacob Brusk. Like, I'll say this, Vancouver in their current state, I mean, they came back and they won in a shootout against the Kraken, but they've lost 3 of their last 4. And I mean, they're without Paterson and without Hughes and without Demko. I mean, this is not an easy spot right now for Vancouver. For Montreal's side of things, they've actually, over the last kind of 2 weeks, they have been playing well. They just beat the Avalanche in a shootout on. Now, they had a long road trip, and the road trip was really good. Lost to Columbus, then they beat the Panthers coming out of the break, beat the Lightning, beat the Golden Knights, lost to Chicago, and beat the Avalanche. Makes
last
sense
4
of that.
Stanley Cup champions they beat and lost to Chicago and Columbus.
Lost to the worst team in the league. This is that dreaded first game back from a road trip, a long one. Maybe I will ride with Vancouver in this game. What do you think about that one?
First game back from a road trip kind of scares me, but the Canucks, I mean, I don't know what to make of the Canucks. We were talking this morning, and Drager had an interesting note this morning because we were just talking about the Canucks, and I can't remember which Canucks media member had the poll yesterday. It might have been Sikaris. I can't remember. Anyway, somebody had it and was like, should the Canucks and the poll was trade Miller, trade Paterson, and I think the other option was trade both. And we asked I said, what's going on? He goes, well, something of significance is going to happen. He goes, but take my word for it. He goes, it is worse than it looks in Vancouver. Think about that. Like how bad it looks. He was just like, it's undoubtedly worse than it looks right now with the Vancouver Canucks. So I don't know, man. What are they, minus 130 on the money line?
Minus 130 on the money line.
I'm missing some key pieces, though.
I'll be honest, I like the value with Florida at plus 106 tonight. The Panthers lost to the Hurricanes. They beat the Canes. This is their first game of this road trip. They lost to the Avalanche earlier this year at home, 7-4. So I think I'm kind of leaning Avs tonight. Obviously, this Devils Kraken game is a little bit, it's such a big number. And then what about Washington Buffalo? The Sabres, after, 13 in a row, won 3 in a row, but then they just lost 3 in a row. Really, really tough teams, though. Stars, Avalanche, Golden Knights.
This is a tough team, too, though.
The Caps continue to be one of the top teams in the league. And their recent play is kind of win one, lose one, win one, lose one.
Part of me now, did Washington is minus 154 fishy to you at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Right.
That's why I'm thinking Buffalo plus 130.
I don't know. Something just seems. I feel like Washington should be like in that minus 175 range. They're asking us to take the Caps here, which kind of scares me a little bit. What would Florida and Buffalo? Oh, man, are we going to look back at yet tomorrow and be like, can you believe we bet the Sabres against the Caps? You know what I mean?
Hey, Buffalo is just one of those teams that they've had a really, really rough run. But at times they can actually get it together. And I don't know. I mean, I think Washington, this is a long season. Even the best teams in the league drop games to, lesser teams.
What about first game home after a 4-game road trip too, though. Same sort of theory as Montreal.
I just think they're so much more desperate. Like, it's one thing to come back after a road trip where you've been winning and everything's great, like Montreal's been. And it's a little different when you come back and you know that your season's basically on the line. I guess they're still last in the East. If we go conference here, Buffalo still. Wow, Islanders and Rangers. 37 points. Just 4 up on Buffalo right now.
Oh, ouch. How are you only 4 up on a team that went over a month without winning a hockey game? That's gross.
It's true. What do we have here?
Panthers Sabres is plus 371. If you did like the Canucks, it'd bring it up to plus 734, which is pretty big.
Pat has mentioned in the chat, the Sabres have won 3 games since American Thanksgiving. 3. Now, they were all in a row, and technically they won 3 of their last 6.
Man, I don't know. The Sabres, that one, the whole thing worries me about that game. I don't know. I don't know if I...
Okay, if we don't take the Sabres, what we have the Panthers at 105. What about... do we like Vancouver? I mean, Montreal's plus 110 at home.
Yeah, that was my initial thought, was roll Montreal at home, playing well against a Vancouver team that is kind of just in flux right now, missing some significant pieces.
If we leave, so here are our options. If we go Habs, Panthers, Caps, it's plus 610.
Okay.
If we go Habs, Panthers, Devils, it's plus 507. New Jersey.
I still like Washington over Buffalo more than the Devils over the Kraken.
Yeah, the Devils have lost 4 in a row.
Yeah, I don't like.
Whoa, the Devils. Listen to this road trip they're on. Lost to the Canes, lost to the Ducks, lost to the Kings, lost to the Sharks. This could be the get right game. All right, you know what? Yeah. I'll ride with you. So we're going to go Washington.
Yeah.
Montreal and Florida. Plus 614.
Plus 614. All right. And we don't have to tell Jake because he's watching right now. Perfect. He's ready to hop on.
That'll be a nice one. That'll be close to 7-1.
It should be. It'd be nice to cash playing 75% of the games on the schedule tonight. So fingers crossed on that one. If you'd like to find it, it'll be available on the combo cards over at Coolbet. If you're watching right now over on YouTube, hammer the thumbs up for us. And, of course, you can text us anytime at 780-218-9999. Did have a text in here. Coach Mike says Hughes is a game-time decision for the Canucks tonight. And Brandon says Brandon is one of the guys who is heading to Costa Rica. He says, the guy that took you out, Dusty, I beat bad. He had pocket aces, hit a full house with aces and 5s. I had a 5 and hit the quad on the river. Oh, man, how about that? Having a full house and getting rivered by quad 5s. Poker, am I right?
That is harsh.
That's a tough one. That's a bad beat.
That is so harsh. And look at Patty's just doing a victory lap in here. Pat's going to come on tomorrow, but look at these futures. Buccaneers to win the division. That was a beauty. The Sam Darnold over 3,450 passing yards. Awesome. Rams over 8.5 wins. The T. Higgins. We had some beauties. All my Steelers ones cashed earlier on. The one that was done a long time ago was our boy Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing of beauty. Oh, and Logan McCourt. Huss, have you seen the Chiefsaholic documentary on Prime yet? I've watched it twice. I was thinking about doing like an in-depth video review of this. I highly recommend it. It is not totally glorifying Chiefsaholic. They have a couple, one in particular, absolutely insane Chiefs fan that they keep interviewing. If you've seen this, you'll know the one that I'm talking about. She is very much detached from reality. But the coolest thing about it is like they get him out of jail and he's watching the Super Bowl in the in a hotel room knowing that he's got a $5,000 bet on Mahomes to win the MVP at 8-1 and 10 grand on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. So once they win that, he's got this money, and the guy, the bail bondsman that bailed him out, is getting a little nervous. And then sure enough, he cuts off his bracelet and he takes off. And then the second half is him like on the hunt for Chiefsaholic. Like it's,
oh my
if you have
God.
some time and you've got an off day, I would certainly check it out. The first half is a little more about the guy, and then the second half is more about the hunt to get him. It's a quality.
I'm gonna have to
look.
watch this then. That sounds good.
Yeah.
You convinced me. You convinced me.
It's cool.
All right, let's bring in the proud owner of the 4th overall pick, Jake Bullen Moss of the New England Patriots. Jake, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, I've been better.
Congrats, big win yesterday.
Leafs won both this weekend, so I guess you can be happy about that. But, Huss, it's literally what we talked about. And I said to you Thursday and Friday, like, what is more beneficial to Gerard Mayo on Sunday? Winning the game or losing the game? And it was the exact scenario we discussed. He wins the football game, and within, like, minutes of the game ending, he's out the door. I had tweeted, like, Gerard Mayo needs to be fired yesterday. Like, this is ridiculous. The guy, all he did this season was lose right up until he needed to lose, and he won the football game. Like, it's so utterly ridiculous. So sure enough, he gets fired within like seconds of me tweeting that. And you know, Huss, this is the one thing I was praying they didn't do this prior to the show, and they haven't yet. If this means Vrabel's in the door, I'm absolutely all back in on the Pats because like just what he's been able to do with the Titans team. That I was surprised the Titans even let him go because like he doesn't have a lot of talent there, and just the way he can coach up those guys is so impressive. Like, I loved Vrabel for the Titans. You think about back on that game when they beat the Ravens in the playoffs. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but it was like even another one of those, you know, everyone's all about, you know, the Ravens are chokers in the playoffs. Like, it's the kind of guy he is. Like, he goes into games that there's no way this guy can win this football game, and he coaches his team up. You know, it's similar to what Dan Campbell's been able to do. I don't want to discredit Dan Campbell because he's been absolutely incredible. I don't want to say he's Mike Vrabel, but it's a similar situation where, you know, you might not have all your top guys. You think about how injured the Lions have been, but when you coach up your guys to play, you know, to buy in to play at a top level, that's what I think Vrabel is capable of doing with the Patriots. So that is my hope. I also saw a report, and I don't know if it was true, the Patriots have inquired about interviewing Ben Johnson. I'm sure everyone wants to interview Ben Johnson. Obviously, we know why. I think either one of those guys, I'd be pretty happy. Anyone else besides that, this was an utter failure of a season. Like, I know Drake May showed some great flashes, but losing that game, the entire draft was controlled by the Patriots.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting in the 4th spot, and you're basically waiting for something to fall to you. So, you know, at that point, I don't think Travis Hunter might not even be available by then. You know, if you wanted Travis Hunter, you could probably move down to the 3rd pick and get more assets when you're at number 1. Now you're at number 4, and you're just sitting around and you're waiting for, you know, the Titans to control what they want to do and the Browns, et cetera.
I wonder, by the way, just on that, I mean, I said it last week. I fully believe that Mike Vrabel was talking to the Jets, just using that as a pressure move to put pressure on the Patriots. And I think the fact that they fired him as quickly as they did tells you that they're very much interested in that. Now, I know there's not supposed to be any in-person interviews until the divisional week. So maybe they have to wait a little bit on this, and it gives a little bit more drama to it. But put it this way, if there's any lines coming up over at Coolbet on who the next coach is of the Patriots, I will expect it to be minus a lot behind Mike Vrabel. I mean, that is the guy. And Lexi, if you talk to Bears fans, I mean, Bears fans are pumped that they, you know, beat the Packers yesterday, whatever. It's always a good day when you meet Green Bay. It's going to hurt their draft pick a little bit. It's not like they were right there for the top pick. But to them, it's one of two guys. It's Ben Johnson or Vrabel. And you know that they'll end up getting
let me just
McCarthy or something.
I'm going to slide in here because this Rappaport just tweeted this a few moments ago, and I find it to be the most Bears thing ever. But the Chicago Bears, and look, a lot of these teams are requesting to speak to a lot of guys. I think the Jets have like 20 guys on their list. The Bears have requested to speak with Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka for their vacant head coaching position. Can you imagine taking a coordinator from the Giants and making him the head coach of the Bears? Like, come on. My God, you should see the replies. You got to see the replies to that tweet. Like, there's just Giants fans being like, take him. And there was one other guy who said, I'm not even a Giants fan, and this ruined my day. Like, it's just, yeah. I don't know, man. It's crazy.
I heard they're getting McCarthy. That's what Patty told us.
Yeah.
That's who the Bears are getting.
McCarthy.
Going back to the NFC North, the irony of this all is that, I mean, we'll see what happens with McCarthy in Dallas. I mean, I thought he should have been whacked last year. They come back, everyone gets hurt. They have an even worse season they've done before. But Jerry still likes his guy, and he has had some success in the regular season before, just none in the playoffs and some really, really tough runs. Here's the draft order after the huge win by New England yesterday. Tennessee vaults into the top spot. That's another team that could be one and done with their head coach. I mean, Callahan, that was an absolute disaster this year. Will Levis ain't the guy. So will the Titans pick a quarterback at number 1? Potentially. Cleveland's at 2. Cleveland needs everything. And they've got the Deshaun Watson factor. So, you do wonder whether they're going to go quarterback. Did they try to trade down? Did they take Travis Hunter? I have a couple pretty key pieces on that defense. If you had Hunter and Myles Garrett, of course. And then the Giants are in at number 3. That's another team that needs a quarterback. So it did suck for even the fact that you guys have Drake May already. You could say, well, it's not that important. You don't really need the quarterback. However, the opportunity to utilize that number 1 pick to acquire more draft capital was significant. And it was, we have to think, like, that press release was coming out win or lose, right? I mean, it wasn't just because they won that they were so pissed off that they went and did it. I mean, that thing was ready to go.
That's the other thing I was going to say, Huss, is, we did talk about, is win or lose, like, is that going to be the difference maker? I think no matter what, Gerard Mayo was out the door. Like, as quickly as that information came out, you wonder how much he knew prior to that game. Because, like, if you know that's probably your last game coaching, you're not doing anything to help that team's future draft.
Let's win this game.
So, of course, you're going to go try to win the football game. And you can't fault the guy for that. I would be doing the exact same thing. But when it's your own team and you're sitting there watching it and you're just like, please lose it. And, I mean, in his defense, they did play Joe Milton, who is, technically the third string on that team. But, Milton was actually fairly impressive. He had some great moments. He's clearly not, like, the raw talent. It's one of those Anthony Richardson situations where the raw talent is really incredible, but you just don't know, how effective he could be at the NFL level. But I know Patty's in the chat right now. He said he wants nothing to do with Vrabel as a Bills fan. He doesn't want Vrabel as the Pats head coach, which makes me feel a lot better. And you look at the AFC East now, boys. We came into the season like, the AFC East, outside of the Patriots, could be the toughest division in football. Well, guess what? The Miami Dolphins are imploding. Tyreek Hill says he's out. Jalen Ramsey is posting cryptic Instagram stories. He's going to be out the door. Like, it's not going well for Miami right now. And the New York Jets, not much better either. I mean, we saw what's happened with them. Was that Aaron Rodgers' last football game? Who knows? So guess what? If Vrabel's in the door and make some strong moves, like, I'm very excited about next year's Patriots. I'm not going to say they're going to be a playoff team.
God, I love you, Jake.
They could be a lot better than they were this year.
I love you. You come on with a full-blown meltdown, and 5 minutes later, like, I'm very excited about next year's Patriots if Vrabel's
it's all barring who they bring in. It's all barring who they bring in. If they bring in Joe Schmo off the street, I'm not going to be excited. Like, no offense to Gerard Mayo, but, he didn't have a lot of coaching experience.
No.
You don't really know what you were going to get out of him. And guess what? He wasn't gifted a great roster either. So that's not necessarily his fault. But in a situation where it's like, okay, Gerard, like, all we need here is a loss and we control the draft, and you go out and win a football game when you haven't won a football game all damn season, it's frustrating. Yeah. It's frustrating.
He said all the right things. He said all the right things during the week. Oh, we're not going to commit to anything. We just need to play. We don't know who's going to play. We don't, like, it was just set up there to tank it.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, what do?
Well, and guess what? It all comes back. This is what everyone's talking about online now. It all comes back to week 1, Patriots, Bengals. The Bengals go in. They can't beat the Patriots. That would have been their ticket to the playoffs.
Yes.
So they're out, and the Patriots lose out on the number 1 pick. And if that game just flips, obviously, that assuming everything else remained the same, we're talking about a much different scenario where the Patriots control the draft. The Bengals are in the playoffs. We're heading into Super Bowl.
And Joe Burrow's the MVP.
Great matchups. Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Like how crazy.
Hey, don't worry
Everyone's
about
talking
Joe Burrow.
that,
He's
too.
going to do great in that precision passing drill in that flag football game coming up in Hawaii.
Next year, let's remember this. Next year, at the end of week 1, let's pick the one game that's going to completely change how the season plays out across the National Football League. That'll be a fun one. Okay, as for these games, and obviously as we work our way through the week, we'll have a lot of time to dive into a bunch of these different games. There's 5 of them up right now. The Rams-Vikings game I do not see. It was up this morning at 2.5 for the Vikings on the road.
Yeah, I can check on that.
Yeah, just check on that one. Chargers are 3-point road favorites against Houston. The Ravens, it was at 9.5 this morning. It's moved to 10. So the Ravens are 10-point home favorites against the Steelers. The Bills are 9-point home favorites against the Broncos. The Eagles, 4.5 at home against the Packers. The Bucks are 3-point favorites at home against the Commanders. And then, like I mentioned, the Vikings were 2.5-point road favorites against the Rams when that game was on the board earlier today. Haas, when you see those 5 games, or even the Rams-Vikings for if you want to dive into that, what's the big story and the opening lines this week?
Well, first off, not surprising that the annual Texans Saturday afternoon playoff game has them as a home dog. I was pretty sure the way they finished the season, no Tank Dell, no Diggs, that they were going to be an underdog at home. And there you go, the annual AFC South Bowl. And this was 2.5, and now it's 3. I will say, as a Chiefs guy, I was very intrigued as to what happened with that Pittsburgh game, because I don't know, maybe it's just because the Chiefs handled the Pittsburgh so convincingly a couple weeks ago on Christmas Day in Pittsburgh. But man, the Chargers play the Chiefs tough. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a year. That will be a nervous week. If in fact it does, like, the favorites win and it's Bills Ravens and it's Chiefs Chargers, that'll be a short line for Kansas City. I mean, I'm a little surprised that the Ravens are laying 10. I think it might be a little overreaction to Pittsburgh. I mean, I kind of made the case last week going in, and again, depending on what number you had, you could win or lose on that same. And I can't believe how good these bookies are. They were at 10, remember? It was 2 points in that game. At some point it was 1.5 and it closed at 2.5, and Bengals won by 2. So, I mean, there was actually a middle there for people to get in on. But Pittsburgh, Baltimore, to me, seems like it should be closer than 10 points. Mind you, all the noise around Pittsburgh and their defense, mutiny on the ship, whatever. I don't know.
That's a big number.
It is. It's a huge number. And I'll tell you what, it's a huge number for the Bills against Denver, too. That defense is legit. They're going to be playing outdoors. It's going to be relatively cold. I mean, the total in that game's 47. So I would imagine that I'll be picking at least one of the 2 big underdogs this week. And then the game that I'm fascinated about, and we got to get more injury reports and everything, is Green Bay Philly. And how about that, guys? We said after they opened the season, that was the first game of the year. That was the game in Brazil where the Eagles won, saying, don't be surprised if we see these 2 teams go at it again in the playoffs, and lo and behold, they're there. And I'll tell you what, tough for Philly. Like, I'm sure they would have loved to have played Washington, a team they know quite well in the division, in that game that's totally playing with house money. The Packers, while I get it, and Philly should be favored in this game, the Packers absolutely have the ability to go in and shock a team like that on the road. So I cannot wait for that game. And I'm a little disappointed that it's not Tampa Bay playing either Detroit or Minnesota. In this case, it's Minnesota because Detroit won. But I'll tell you what, I think Tampa wins that game, and I think we're going to see, in all likelihood, another game between potentially Tampa and Detroit. In Detroit, and Dusty, you will remember of those two blemishes on the season. One of them was Tampa going in and beating the Lions at Ford Field. And I got to tell you, Baker Mayfield, say what you want about him, this guy is an absolute baller. He has no fear. And that's a guy that I want playing for me in the playoffs. I mean, I'm pretty high on Tampa, actually, coming out of that. And the way they turned the season around, made the playoffs. I mean, they are something Baker says. They are waking up feeling dangerous, I think, as we go into the playoffs.
Jake, what do you think about these matchups?
Yeah, I mean, Huss is speaking my language right now. I thought that Steelers number was pretty big. And even this morning when I tweeted it out, it was 9.5 up to 10 now. Like, it's only getting better if you're a Steelers better. So maybe you're holding on. I don't know how much higher it's going to get off that 10. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, you look at this, I know it's a playoff game, but if you look at this just face value and it was a Steelers-Ravens late season divisional game and you're getting 10 points with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers against a divisional rival, I think you're probably taking that. You know, we talk about Tomlin's pedigree as an underdog. Obviously, as of late, it hasn't looked good. He's lost to some pretty good football teams down the stretch here. I think that's kind of what they're basing this off of is, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't been playing their best football going into the playoffs, you know, whereas the Ravens have just, you know, have been just trucking along pretty easily. So I just think it's so many points. Like, you know, it's, you look at those two games on top of one another here. Steelers, Ravens, 10 points feels like too much. And then Bills, Broncos, like, I don't know. I think the Bills could truck the Broncos. I think the Broncos looked impressive against the Chiefs. But at the same time, you know, we know who was playing for the Chiefs. A lot of the big guys were out for them, and they needed that game more than anything. It was impressive. Like, I think Bo Nix started the game like 17 for 17 at one point, 180 yards, like really impressive stuff. I think, you know, when you're actually in a moment in the playoffs, a guy who's never had a playoff start, I do have a stat here. Quarterbacks making their first playoff start in games against quarterbacks with playoff experience are 19-37-1 against the spread. So doesn't really bode well for a guy like Bo Nix. Doesn't bode well for a guy like Sam Darnold and Jaden Daniels as well. Both those guys in their first playoff start. So something to think about. And then I also agree with Huss. Like, waiting to see on the injuries, yes, but I do kind of lean Packers. You're getting 4.5. Like, that's a pretty decent number. Even if it's at 5, you know, that's kind of the no man's land like we talk about, Huss.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Pack I don't mind at all at 4.5 either. So, I don't know. I have a hard time, like, picking the favorites not to just win outright straight up. But if I am going to pick an underdog to win, right now I do lean Packers. And then once we see that Rams line open back up, I am leaning a bit Rams. I know you've been talking about them too, Dustin.
Yeah.
Like, a little concerned that they could win a football game and end up playing the Lions, and then you don't know what will happen with Stafford.
Well, yeah, like the Vikings
offense.
lost 3 games this year, 2 to the Lions and 1 to the Rams, right? So not an ideal matchup for them with Stafford and some healthy weapons. So, but this is going to be a good week. We'll do like one, maybe like Thursday. We'll dive into NFC. We can get into the AFC on Friday, things like along those lines. Pat's going to join us on Wednesday because we're going to be talking some golf. So that'll be good. What else you got, Huss?
Hey, just one thing. I mean, while we're doing the Monday show heading into the playoffs, just a quick update on Super Bowl odds. And Dusty's Lions are the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
I wasn't gonna bring it up. I saw it right before the show started.
Plus, you know what, now, 315, a slight favorite over the Chiefs at plus 330.
And now that we're talking about it, we do have an exclusive up. We're calling it the number 1 seed, WON1. Detroit Lions or Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, plus 130 in the exclusives right now. So if you want to bet the lock shop, a lock shop victory in the Super Bowl by either Dusty or Huss, you can get that right now, plus 130. Both those teams are on a bye this week as we head into Super Wild Card week.
You know what would be fun to get up? Just basically a lock shop bowl prop. Chiefs to win AFC, Lions to win NFC.
Yeah.
I did have that up, and I wonder if they took it down. I had it up in the combos there for a bit, the old lock shop bowl.
Yeah.
But I'll get that back up. I can probably get that in the combos as well.
It's probably down because the odds would have changed significantly because that was like a while ago, right? So, I mean, I guess
with the combos, the nice thing about the combos is, little peek behind the curtain, is it just moves with whatever the odds are because it's all connected to the site. So, whatever it adjusts to, it might not be the same number we initially got in the Lock Shop Bowl, but it'll still be a pretty good number. I think if you look at it here, Kansas City to win the AFC, Detroit to win the NFC. Oh, maybe you can't parlay it. Maybe that's the issue. Yeah, it's showing we can't parlay it. Well, we'll get it in there regardless.
Yeah.
Maybe in the
Lock Shop Bowl
for this
yeah.
week.
And just one other thing, the combos, the partner parlay is up 7-1 plus 701.
So we did get it to 7. Excellent.
I just got in on it. Washington, Habs, Panthers tonight. Nice boost from the Ev Dog and the boys. So plus 701 right now. That's in the combo cards right up at the top.
Haas, what's coming up on WST today?
Well, we'll be probably talking some people off ledges that the Jets have lost a couple games and worried that there's a January swoon coming because we have seen some of those before. So we'll break down the weekend. Their team's off today, took 2 days off to get ready for this game against Nashville tomorrow. So talk about that. We'll wrap the World Juniors. Alex Adams is going to join us from Ottawa. And we'll have a little bit more NFL talk. Connor will jump on with myself and Remus, and we'll kind of get a bit of a 3-man at the end of the program and talk a little bit more in our Cool Bet segment about these lines for the week. But a lot of hockey, a lot of football, big show coming up at WST in just a few minutes.
Jake, we'll talk to you later in the week, buddy, and best of luck with the 4th overall pick, all right?
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Right.
Big football weekend too, boys.
Yes.
CFP semifinal Thursday, Friday into Super Wildcard weekend. I'm so excited. Can't wait.
That's going to be a lot of fun, too. We'll set those up throughout the
Friday,
week.
okay, we'll have to get those lines tomorrow.
Yeah,
right
we'll
on,
get those set up, too. We'll get into that. For Huss and Jake, I am Nielsen. We've got Oil Stream coming up here right away at noon with myself and Tom Gazzola, WST, firing up over on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. Stick around, Oil Stream on the way.